life-changing, God-inspired Word of God. I will hear it. I will obey it. I love my Bible. Teach me today. Genesis chapter 3. We're going to talk to you this morning about the oldest trick in the book. Genesis chapter 3. We know in this house that God has been calling us to step in beyond His manifest presence. That God has been calling us to step into His glory. If you're a Christian, you realize that two things are always true in your life. Number one, God is always calling you to more. God has always got more that He's wanting to give you. He's got always more that He's wanting to do in your life. He's got more that He's always trying to pour out of heaven to you. And the second thing is, God's always asking for more from us. God is always asking us to be more like Him in every area of our lives, to be in His image. God is always calling us to give us more and calling us to give more. All the time. Ongoing. And we've been talking about where God is calling us. And even back at Christmas, I make reference again to gifts that you all brought to Him and said, God, I'm giving this to you spiritually. This is what I'm giving to you. We understand that God is always calling us to more and to give Him more. We know that. And here's what I've come to realize about those two dynamics in my life. That no matter how much God calls, and His call goes out every day, that the devil is always trying to run interference to what God is calling me to. That I'm on this straight and narrow path, and on that path just in front of me is God the Father. And God the Father is holding things out. He's saying, John, I've got this for you. Come get it. Come on, son. Come and get it. And you can have it. If you'll just surrender to me in this area of your life, you can have what I've got and so much more. And as soon as God is doing that, Satan tries to get in between me and what God has for me. All the time. If you're here this morning and you're really following Jesus, you understand what I'm saying. There's this thing that you always want to do for God, or that place you want to go in God, and you want it more than anything. You know you want it, but sometimes you feel like you never get there, and you wonder why. My heart's sincere. I desire God. I desire more God. I want to give God everything, but I always seem to hold something back. I never seem to quite get all that He wants me to have. What in the world is going on? Satan is running interference. And I find that there's two main ways that he does it. And one of them I'm going to share this morning. And it's the spirit of manipulation. The spirit of manipulation. And the other one is strongholds. And we're going to talk about that next week. But this morning I want to focus in on this thing called the spirit of manipulation. It is a strategy of the enemy that he uses to interfere with where you really do want to go spiritually. So that you never quite get there. This trick, the spirit of manipulation, literally is the oldest trick in the book. And I say that because it's the very first thing that he did to man. To draw man away from what God had in store. And we find it in the book of Genesis chapter 3 with Satan dealing with Adam and Eve. I want us to read the first 9 verses here of chapter 3. It says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, has God said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God had said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die. For God does know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord amongst the trees of the garden. And the Lord God called unto Adam and said unto him, Where art thou? Let me just make a little disclaimer before we get into this. If you have ever find yourself, in your own opinion, failing spiritually, or feeling empty or disconnected from God, or don't seem to be able to quite walk in the authority and power that you know God has called you to walk in, but you know you do have a real sincere desire to be there? I'm just going to tell you right up front, most likely, Satan is tripping you up with the spirit of manipulation. Okay? And I want to start this morning by trying to explain to you what I mean by the spirit of manipulation. I explain what I mean by the word manipulate. I want to give you several definitions this morning, and I want you to follow them, folks, because this is so crucial if you really want to get what God has called you to. To manipulate is to control or play upon a person's thoughts and emotions in order to change their course of action. To manipulate is to play upon somebody's thoughts or emotions. Okay? So you can control them and get them to change their course of action. And the word control means to exercise influence over somebody, to restrain them or direct them away from what they want and toward what you want. So to be manipulated is for somebody to influence you to do what they want you to do instead of what you want to do. Are you with me? To be manipulated is for somebody to influence you to do what they want you to do instead of what you want to do. And that's exactly what the devil did to Eve that day. The first thing I want you to notice about manipulation is right there in verse 1. It says, "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made." Adam and Eve are living in the Garden of Eden in sweet communion with God the Father. They walked with Him daily. They talked with Him daily. In the cool of the day, God came down. God came down out of heaven and walked with them and talked to them. They had a relationship with God that was unbelievable, and they were living in a place that was perfect in Eden. Spiritually, they were doing well. Okay? And that's the condition that Eve was in when the serpent found her that day. And he comes to her subtly. The word subtle means with sly strategy and with secret motivation. And his subtlety was greater than any of God's creation. And hear what the Lord is trying to teach us in this verse this morning. The devil is more subtle than you and I are smart. I don't care how well you know the Bible. I don't care how many years you've been coming to church. The devil is more subtle than you are smart. Mm-hmm. Eve was perfect. And the devil was subtle enough to get her. Okay? The manipulation that Satan uses against us is not obvious. That's why it's called subtle. And unfortunately, it doesn't get detected by most people that are Christians. Don't think that you're any kind of match for the spirit of manipulation that the enemy uses against you, because when we think we're strong enough to handle the spirit of manipulation, he licks his chops at people like that. Don't you think Eve had a right to feel secure in her relationship with God because of the kind of relationship that it was? Don't you think that she thought she had it all together spiritually? Because she did. But it still wasn't enough. If he was able to get her with where she was with God, you and I are easy prey. And we might as well admit that. If you don't want to admit that, then maybe you got a pride issue, okay? Nobody smile. Hey, do I need to preach on pride? Okay. Now look at verse 4. And the serpent said unto the woman, You shall not surely die. Satan took the one commandment that God had given to Adam and Eve and convinced her that it wasn't true. She didn't have a whole Bible of things that we should do and shouldn't do. One commandment is all she had to go on. One is all she had to concentrate on. And the Satan was so subtle that he got her to believe that it wasn't true.